Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. Today I'll be showing you how to build this magical mermaid shell house. This fanciful house built on top of a giant open clamshell would be perfect for an Atlantis style build or for a Little Mermaid themed world. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Keep in mind that it's helpful for this size build to have a few extra of each on hand, and if you don't have access to this much quartz, you could easily switch it out for some sandstone. When scouting out a location for this build, you'll need to make sure you allow 21 blocks across on the ground, 21 blocks deep, and at least 21 blocks of depth in the water. You can have more, but if you have less, the top of your clamshell will stick out the top of the water. I'll first show you how to build this above the water, and then I'll bring it below water to add in all the coral and details. To begin our shell, I'm going to start at the center back by placing in a smooth quartz block, and then I'll count 7 to either diagonal side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the reason we're using smooth quartz here instead of regular quartz blocks is so that all of the block textures blend together. This will give the shell a nice even look rather than it looking blocky as if it is made out of individual pieces. I'm then going to come to the back and I'll place in 2 placeholder blocks here and here. I'm using purple wool, but you could use anything, and I'll be using some smooth quartz stairs to accentuate the shape of the shell. So you can see I've placed them around in a curve like this. We're going to be now curving around the sides of the shell. I'm going to start by building 2 across here, placing in a block. Then I'll place in 2 stairs this way and then that way, and a block behind here, and then a stair to the other side. Now this shell is symmetrical, so everything we do on one side we'll be doing on the other side as well. And underwater it'll be really easy to swim up so you can check that everything matches. And it does. We're going to add in a few more stairs. We're going to come 1, 2, 3 back facing this way, and then we'll place in 1 and 2 facing that way like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and from above, here's how the shape should look. Now we want to add in the scalloped edge. So we're going to come to either side and build 2 blocks out. Then I'll be placing in a stair facing this way like this. Then I'll use a placeholder block to place in another stair facing that way with a block connected to it. And then I'll come back on the diagonal. Let's do this on the other side. Like that. When I have to go back on my diagonal. Now we can start making the larger curves. So for this stair, I'm going to start by placing it facing towards the front of the shell, and then I can wrap it around like this. Coming around this way, and you can see we're creating a little circular shape, like that. And we've almost gone all the way around the shell here. We just need to fill in this smaller section. So I'm placing in 1 more stair facing in towards the center here. Then I'll have a block on either side and then a stair in the center. So you can see the scalloped edge, and you can see that the stairs create a nice smooth curved shape coming out of the ground. The next layer will just be using some smooth quartz blocks. Let's start in this center point here and work around to either side. You can see I'm just following along the shape of the outline here, and I'm using the outermost outline as my guide. So you can see I'm leaving out these corners. I'm also going to come 1 block over the top, so this extends 2, so we've got the 2 diagonal, then 2 here, and then I'll just follow along the diagonal towards the back. So you can see we've got a nice curve here, and I'll do this on the other side. Now we need to sort out this back section. For here, I'm going to go on top of all of these blocks, and then I'm also going to connect it up here. Now, we're going to be covering over these 2 holes, but you could add a torch in here so you don't have mobs spawning later if you'd like. Now I'm going to grab some white terracotta, and I'll be filling in this whole base at the top level here. You could easily add in a basement space underneath this shell. It would be fun to curve out the space so it feels like you're in the bottom half of the clamshell when you're in your basement. And you can add a ladder going directly down there from the little house that's going to sit on top of here. Here we go, almost finished filling this in. If you would like to get a schematic for this build, as well as other awesome benefits like playing on this epic Patreon server where I film all of my tutorials, as well as having an SMP server and so many other worlds, make sure you check out my Patreon. I'd love to have you part of my legend family, and your support really does mean the world to me. Okay, we've filled in the clam shape. Now we're going to grab some smooth quartz slabs, and I'll be placing these on top of most of the outline. I'm going to come all the way around here and then stop when we get towards the back. I'll place one in here, and then I'll place in a block and then continue back round. Once we've done that, we're going to come out with some slabs, and I'm doing this on the slab half below where we've just placed them, and I'm going to start coming around, and I'll be leaving out just a few slabs, so I won't be placing one here. We're defining the shape of the shell as we're doing this. And I'm going to stop here so we don't go all the way into this join in the shell. And you can see from above the shell shape. Now we need to start working on this back opened half of the clamshell. Now this can be a little bit tricky, so just take your time. It's always useful to have lots of placeholder blocks, and don't be afraid to break and replace until you get the look that you want. So I'm going to come up one, and I'm placing this on top of the slab. You should see that it floats. I'm then going to come across diagonally 2, and then I'll do another group of 2, and then I'll go up 2 like this. Now I'm going to be using some extra quartz blocks, which I'll just be breaking as I go, but you can easily switch between your placeholder block or just replace all your placeholder blocks afterwards. So now I'm going to come up on a diagonal and add 3 on top, so I have a total of 4 here like this, and it can curve back in and around. Then we'll come up 3 like that, and I'm going to come and do this on the other side. One, 2, 3, 4. Right, there we go. I need to add one more on top of here. I had some invisible blocks which made it hard to count, but you can see we're roughly following a similar shape to what we have on the lower half of the clam. We're also going to be using some stairs here to add to the shape. So I'm going to add a stair facing outwards like this, and you can see they're upside down. Then I'm going to place stairs on top of these sides as well as some slabs. So I've got a stair and then 2 slabs. There we go. I'm then going to place a block on the top slab and then come down on the diagonal. And this is creating the first little scallop of our shell. Okay, I'm going to grab a placeholder block for this next section and add in a stair. And another stair and a diagonal like this. And over to the other side as well. Then I'll add in a block, and we're going to come down now to a point. Stair, stair, and we'll finish with a block in the center. Like this. We're working layer by layer here, so I'm going to rotate round to the back of the build now and start working backwards in layers. For this next layer, I'm going to start by placing a block in here and then coming up in 2 groups of 2 in a diagonal like this. Then I'll come 2 groups of 2 going to the side like that. I'm going to go in with some stairs right away here. I'm going to be placing one in here and one in there like this. And then I'm going to place in a slab here. And I'll do this on both sides. Like this. Now we need to start working up on a diagonal. So I'm going to place in 3 blocks going up on a diagonal. 1, 2, 3. I'll add 3 on top of this one. 1, 2, 3. And then 2 coming out to the side. Again, we'll go in with some stairs. I'll add 3 going up here, and then I'll add 3 on the other side as well. So it should look like this. And then I'm going to add a stair on top of here and on top of here, as well as underneath here. Like that. I'm going to grab some more of my blocks now, and we're going to count 4 blocks up on top of here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll then add 2 to this side, 1, 2, and then at the lowest level, I'll add in a block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 1. Like this. Now we're going to go in with some stairs. So I'll place these stairs on top of these blocks, here and here. And I'll also place them on a diagonal on these 2 blocks. Here's how it should look. Continuing with some blocks now, I'm going to create a little L shape coming off of this here block, going up 1, 2, 3, like this. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to use a placeholder block to place in here. And I'm going to place in another L shape coming down like this. We're going to go in with some stairs now. I'm going to have these stairs facing outwards, coming off of these second little L's like this. And then I'm going to create a point here coming down. Like that. I'm also going to add some slabs on top of here. And I'm going to go in with some stairs. There we go. We're almost there with this layer of the build. I'm going to grab some blocks and come 3 across from these 2 stairs and then come 1 down. I'm going to be using some stairs now. Just to smooth off that edge, I'll add a stair to here and to here like this. Then I'll have an extra block in the center, here and here. And I'll have a slab on either side of that. Now for this next part, I'll need to come to the front of my build and I'm going to place a stair underneath here like that. And then I'm going to have a stair facing backwards on this side so it looks like a solid block from the front. You can see the shape of the shell as it starts curving back round towards the build now, and let's get working on the next layer. Grabbing out our blocks, I'm going to be starting on this center point here, building up 2 blocks high. I'll then come 2 up to the other side, and then 1 out from there. So it fills in a shape like this. Then I'm going to fill in a little L shape on either side, and then come 1 out. There we go. Now we're going to start coming up, and then we're also going to make the divisions within the interior of the shell as we're going. So I'm going to create a little W shape to begin with out of my blocks. And we're going to be jumping from side to side here, as that is what I find to be the easiest way to work on this kind of build. Now we're going to build up 3 high, 1, 2, 3, and then have a block come out to the side. I'll then add another 3 on top, 1, 2, 3, and come in and build up 4 from this same point. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll see that it sits above this block here. Do this on the other side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like this. I'm then going to start coming in here. We're going to come in 3 blocks. 1, 2, 3, and come down 1. Just like that. Then we'll come up like this. Up again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and it should bring us into the middle, and I'll come back down. like that. Now we need to add in some stairs and slabs to round off the shape. I'm going to start by placing a stair here as well as 2 slabs. And that'll fill in that little gap that's there. That's all the stairs and slabs we need to add to the top now, and we're going to start coming down the sides. So I'm going to add a stair to here and here. Then I'm going to have these stairs be facing towards the back like this. We've got a stair there and a stair there. Just like that. Now let's add in these divisions within the shell. I'm going to come to this point here in the build and build up 2 blocks and then add a stair, and I want the stair to be facing towards the center like this. I'll then create a little L shape on top, and I'm going to create another stair coming towards the interior of the shell like that. Then I'll place in 2 more of my blocks going up diagonally. Let's do that on the other side. So it should look like this from the front. I'm also going to add some stairs underneath these 2 points here and here. Just like that. And then I also want to add a stair coming down from here. So we want to check that this comes down 3 blocks, and then we'll add a stair onto that. I'm back around at the back side of the build now. I'm going to come down to here and place in 4 slabs on top of these 4 points. I'm then going to place on top of these slabs a little upside down T like this. So I've just built across 3 and then up 2 in the center. I'll come across 2 to the other side, then I'll come up 2 again on a diagonal, then 3 and then 4. And that'll fill in that gap nicely. And you should be left with something like this. I'll then add 3 to here, 1, 2, 3. Add another 4 on top of this side, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then leaving a gap here, I'll fill in these 2 blocks. So it should look like this. Now I'm going to create a little square shape here, filling in a 2 by 2 area. 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. And then I'll connect this up to the bottom part of this half of the shell. I'll then add in 2 blocks here and here. Come up another layer, and I'm going to build all the way across for this section, connecting up with the other side, and then I'll come 2 blocks down. Like this. Now I need to add in some stairs. So all of these stairs on the outside edge are going to be facing towards the back of the shell now. So we have a stair here and here. We have a stair here. I'm going to come over this side and do the same thing. Next, I'm going to go in with some slabs. I'm going to place a slab in here and on the 2 sides of this part of the shell. And you can see that this is following the curved shape. And then I'm going to place in a couple more stairs, and these are going to be placed from the inside of the build this time, off of these 2 points. So here's how it looks from the inside, and we'll head back round to the outside for the next layer. For this layer, I'm going to begin with my placeholder block, and I'm going to line myself up with this slab and then build 1 more on top of that, so we're 2 up here. Then I'm going to grab out my smooth quartz blocks, and I'm going to start building up. We're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that should bring us to here on the build. Then I'll come back down to the bottom and add 2 in here. I'm going to come up on a diagonal. Then I'm going to add 2 more on top of here, but we're going to start filling in. So I'm going to count 1 block up and then come out to the side and 2 more on top of that. So it should look like this. Then I'll build up this post to 1 above where that post ends. Then I'll create a little curve just to connect it to the center post. And I'll do this on the other side. So I'm coming up 2, 1 on the diagonal. I'm going to come up 2 more on the diagonal here and start filling in this shape. And you should be left with something that looks like this. Now we're going to add in my stairs and slabs. These stairs are going to be facing towards the back of the shell once again. And we've got them in here like this. We've got some on the side like this. And then to fill in these gaps here as well. I'm also going to use them as we come down this diagonal to create a nice curve. And we're on to the last layer of the shell now. For this last layer of the shell, I'm going to grab my blocks to begin with, and I'm going to start one above the base of here. I'll also get rid of these placeholder blocks for now. I'm then going to build all the way up until I'm one below the top like this. Then I'll come back down and I'm going to jump up a level and build all the way up till I'm down one. And I'll do this on both sides. And then I'll count up 2, 1, 2, and build up so I'm one below. Then these gaps are going to be filled in with stairs facing towards the back like this. I'm also going to be placing a slab here and a slab here, as well as one below that. Here's how the back of your clamshell should be looking. And you can see when we look from the inside that we have a nice shape with defined sections within the shell. With the shell done, we can begin working on the house. I'm going to start by finding the center of this shell and counting 2 in and placing in a chiseled sandstone. I'll then count 2 to either side of that to place in some more. I'm going to come on a diagonal here and place in another one here, and then on another diagonal and place one so it lines up. So you can see we've kind of got 2 diagonal blocks going here and here. Then we're going to place them coming back around to complete the circle, and once again I'm going to count 2 blocks and place in another one. So you can see we should be left with 8 post locations. Now I'm going to grab some smooth sandstone and we're going to start making the outline of the interior space of this house. You can see I'm following along behind these posts, but I'm cutting off the corners of my rectangle. I'm also leaving a 2 wide gap here for where we will have our doorway. We're going to go in with our windows next, and these are 2 high and we have 3 of them in these 3 gaps, and then I'll be placing sea lanterns on top of here. I'm also going to use a placeholder block to place in 2 more sea lanterns above here. Then I'm going to fill in the rest of these walls using some sand. And I'm just placing this on top of the smooth sandstone, not on top of the post locations. Like this. Now on top of each of these post spots, we're going to build up 3 high with some cut sandstone. And then we're going to add some details using some smooth stone stairs. I'm going to have the first sandstone stair coming out this way and then on top like this to create a little point. Now this little house is inspired by what I think the city of Atlantis might have inside of it. So it's got lots of details in a small space, and then we're using a mixture of sand colors and then the blue prismarine, but you could easily switch out the prismarine for another color block. I think purple would look really pretty here and work with the mermaid feel. So we should be left with something that looks like this. Now you can leave the floor inside your house out of this white terracotta, but I like to switch it out here for some of this quartz block, which have a more tile-like pattern than the shell. I think this brings the shell color inside the build, and I think it brightens up the space. I'm also going to place 2 warped doors in here and some sand on top to complete this section of the wall. Next we need to start adding some arches, so we're going to be using some smooth sandstone stairs to create the bottom half of the arch, and I'll do this in each of the gaps between the windows. Like this. Then on these corner sides we need to create some arches as well. I'm going to start by coming out from each of these posts here like this. Then I'm going to come up on top, coming in and across this way like that, and then I'll fill in a gap here with a smooth sandstone block to create the arch shape. Like that, and I'll do that on the other side. Once those arches are complete, I'm going to place in a few more stairs, this time on top of the ones on the 2 wide gaps, to create that arch shape. And you should be left with a base that looks like this. I'm going to add in a few more stairs here. I'm going to be placing pairs of stairs in these two corners on each side. And this helps round off the shape of the build. Next, I'll come inside the build and add in a ladder, and then I'll add in my floor for the second story, and I'll be using some of the regular sandstone, or rather quartz slabs here like this. Let's add on the roof. For the roof, we'll be using regular prismarine. I'm going to start by building all the way across here, and then coming one in and building across again to create a shape like this. And I'll do this on the back side of the roof as well. I'll then go in with stairs in these corners. And then in the center, I'll come across with a group of 3 slabs. Like that. We're aiming to create a dome shape here. Now to either end of the build, we'll build 3 across and then 1 up in the center. And we'll add a stair on either side. Then we'll fill in this corner with a block. Just like that. And we're going to start coming up here. I'm going to add a slab to these 2 spots, and then I'll follow around the outline at the next layer up with some blocks. There we go. I'm going to use a placeholder block now, just some purple wool to add in 2 slabs here and here. And then I'll connect them with some prismarine, and I'll come an extra block up in the center. I'll place a stair to the front and the back, and a wall on top. I'm also going to add in some walls in these corners here. Let's have a look at the roof. While we're here, I'm also going to add some more decor to the door. I'm just going to be using some regular sandstone stairs to create a little archway like that. To really enhance the magical feel of this build, we're going to be using some glass to create a spiral coming up from the roof. Now to do this, I'm going to start by creating a basic shape out of wool. You could of course use any placeholder block, but I'll be using wool here. So I'm going to start wrapping this wool around the build, and it doesn't really matter how you go about this as long as you end up with a spirally shape that you're happy with. You want something fluid and natural looking. As we come up, I'm going to start tightening in the shape of my spiral, but I want to get quite high up on the build so that the glass, the colored glass, can be seen with the backdrop of the white, which will really make it pop. Coming back around now, and we're going up as we go. You can always adjust the shape of your spiral once you've got it in. Go up a bit higher here. And I'm really starting to corkscrew all the way in now. Almost at the top. And let's take a step back and see. There we go, it almost looks like another sort of sea snail shell. Now I'll be taking some glass panes. I've got light blue, blue, magenta and purple, and I'll just be placing these somewhat haphazardly onto the wool. The idea is that once we've got all of these panes in, we can go ahead and break the wool. This is just giving us a good base to get a nice spirally shape. I like to go colour by colour, but you might like to switch between the colours as you place. You do want to keep in mind that you don't want your glass connecting. So for example, as I'm coming around, I wouldn't be placing another glass here because they'll connect and they won't have the same twinkly effect. Almost up to the top with the blue now. Now I'll go in with some magenta. And you could use whatever colours you like. I've just chosen these ones as they feel right for a little mermaid build for me. But you could also use a mixture of greens and yellows. You could use some reds if you'd like to incorporate some red coral. It really is up to you. Come and place a glass here. And next we're going to go in with some purple as our final colour. You do want to make sure you're also not connecting up to the build, but you can always check these things once you've got the glass in and you've broken the purple or whatever color you've got placeholder blocks. Almost there with our glass. Let's add in just a few more. I think I'll add in a purple one here. And now let's break these placeholder blocks and reveal the magical twinkling spiral. Now, often when I'm building above ground and I want to add a magical spiral like this, I'll include in it some end rods for a glow. Now, we can't place end rods in underwater, but if you decide to build this build on a beach and it would look really fantastic there, you could add in some end rods. Okay, let's take a step back. You can see the spiral shape has really formed. You can also go in and break a few if you'd like to define the spiral shape a bit more, or move some of them about until you get a look that you're really happy with. I might move this purple one down here, for instance. Oh, that looks fantastic, and it really does look magical. I also want to create a few faux bubbles. For this, I'm going to use a placeholder block to build out and away from my build. I'm going to have a larger one on this side, so I'm going to leave enough space for that. I'm going to start by building a 3x3 platform, and I'll build one more up on top of that, and then in the center I'll place in a sea lantern. I'll build all the way around here, and then 2 more layers of 3 on top. Like this. Now to round off the shape, I'll build a 3x3 face in the center of each of these sides. Now the reason I'm having these solid with glass is it then means that there's no edges within my glass because of the Optifine texture pack I'm going to be using. There you go. I'm then going to come over to this side and I'm going to add in a smaller bubble. Let's build up a little bit. Make sure we're not going to connect up with our glass. For this smallest bubble, I'm going to be creating a little shape like this. Then I'll place in my block in the center, and then I'll continue to surround the shape of the block, just leaving out the corners of the cube. There we go. Remove the wool, and up to this side. We're going to add in one more bubble. I like to have these in a group of 3. This one I think I'll have right up above the shell. In we go with our little X, a sea lantern, and fill in. This also illuminates the build, which looks really magical. There we go. Bubbles are in. Now I'm going to be using some cobblestone and some dead praying coral blocks at a little coral path coming away from the doorway. I'm just going to have this in a cobbled pattern like this. And I'm just going to have a simple pattern. You can play around with the shape of your path until you get a distribution you're happy with, and I think that looks really cute. Now, of course, you will have been building this all underwater, and I've just shown you above the surface of the water so it's easier to see the blocks. But building this underwater in survival with a conduit is really easy, and it means you can swim around and get a really good view of the build. Now I'm going to move underwater to add in all of the details that involve coral, so let's get swimming. Okay, I'm underwater now and I've got my conduit set up so it's nice and bright. We're going to be adding a few more details around the outside of this build, starting with some columns that match the ones on the build. I'll be adding these in a few groups of 3 in little circle-like shapes. Now, the placement of these is really going to depend on the ocean floor around your build, but I like to keep the front of the build nice and open so it doesn't block the beautiful shell shape. And I'll be having these at staggered heights. I think I'm going to have 3 groups of 3 here. And let's add one towards the back over here by the coral reef. Now I've been lucky enough to find a coral reef to place my house by. But if not, you might want to build some coral around your house yourself. Alright, now that that's in, we're going to switch to adding the corals. Now I'm going to stick to a mixture of brain, horn and bubble coral around the actual house. So let's start adding these in. My plan for these is to have a really natural look, so the shape of your coral could be very different to mine. You just want to wind them up like this and have them poking out of some of the gaps in the build. Okay, I think I'm happy with that for my first coral formation. Let's add a yellow one to this side. And you can add as much or as little coral as you want, but it's a really great way to add a pop of color to your build and have some fun with the placement. And the cool thing about coral is you don't have to follow strict patterns like you would with a tree to get it to look like a tree. Just having this color underwater is really going to give it a fantastic effect. I'm also keeping in mind where I've got the glass here so I don't cause any collisions. I think that's pretty good. I might bring some of these up just a little bit higher so the height's different to that on the other side. And maybe I'll have this one spiral back in that way, like this. Or I could even have it come forward. I think I like that. Okay, next I'm going to add in a pink one. I'm going to have this come out from the base of the shell, and I'm going to have it kind of go along the sea floor a little bit and reach up. This one might come out of a couple different locations. Perhaps this shell just happened to fall on top of a coral and the coral is fighting to reach the ocean from underneath the shell. Having a story behind your build is a really great way to get into the building spirit, and you can always go ahead and break some of the shell if it's in the way of where you want to put your coral. Let's see about that one. I like that. I'm going to add a magenta one coming out over this side, and I think I'll have this one coming along the seafloor as well. I'm going to have this one a bit more horizontal, so less uppy points and a lot more of these kind of long trailing sections. I am going to have it come up a little bit just for a bit of dimension. Might need to move these over a little bit. And let's take a look at that. I think that's pretty good. I might add a few extra corals just in here like that. Okay, I'm going to add some at the back now. Let's have a yellow coming up this side from underneath the shell, but this one's going to be pointing upwards. And I want these at the back to be quite tall so they stand out from behind the house. You could of course mix in some of the blue and red coral as well if you'd like. But I'm going to be using some of the fans and coral pieces to add those colors on top of these coral formations. Let's see. These natural things can take a bit of time, but by taking your time with them when you're building, you can really achieve a fantastic look. And I think I'm going to bring a few pieces of coral up and out this way, and perhaps even a little bit behind the shell. There we go. And finally, I want to add in one more pink large coral. This one I'm going to have coming out from here on the build, and it's going to be nice and tall. Now I've got this bubble here, so I need to make sure I'm avoiding that, but I can come back in here into the curve of the shell, and I can keep coming up this way as well. Now, if you're having trouble coming up with ways to build these coral formations, one thing I could recommend is swimming out to a naturally generated coral reef here in Minecraft and seeing how those are built. And then once you get a feel for how they're typically built in Minecraft, you can play around with the shapes to create a coral style that feels right to you. I'm going to take a step back. And I think that looks fantastic. Okay, I'm also going to grab some soul sand while I'm here and add in some little patches. Now, you could easily use magma, and I think that would probably work really well underwater, as that's what you typically find under the ocean. I'm going with soul sand here because that way if a turtle swims over the top, it's not going to be sucked down to the bottom. But adding magma would be really cool because it would give a wonderful glow. I just don't want to harm any of the sea turtles. I'm adding a few of these random shape patches around the base of the build. You got to think about where you want the bubbles to be going here. So I've got some coming up there. I think I might have some of this soul sand be placed behind this shell, and this will send bubbles coming up in between the cracks in the coral and the shell itself, like that. And I might place a little bit in behind here as well. Let's take a look at that from the front. That looks really good. I might add a few more back here though, just to make it a little bit more visible. Let's see. Marvelous. Now I'm going to go in with some sea pickles and some coral, just the regular coral, and then some of the coral fans. So I'm going to be placing these sea pickles in and around to provide a little bit of light. And you might like to think about where you'd like to have the build illuminated from. So I'm going to be placing some of these inside the shell, as well as on top of the coral. It's up to you how many you place in of these, and remember that the more you have on a block, the more the sea pickle will glow. I'm also going to have some of these around the base of the shell as well. Take a step back and see if I like that, and I do. I might even place a couple on the roof here. Okay, now we're going to go in with our coral. I'm going to just start with one color and make my way around to all of these different coral formations. I'm going to place a few of these on the roof as well. And as well as that, I'll place some on the actual shell. So let's start adding them. You might need to have a water bucket on hand when placing in this coral. You can see here that for some reason this block isn't waterlogged, so I can go ahead and click it with a bucket to fix that problem. You'll notice that when I go around, I won't be placing so many of the yellow on top of the yellow formations and the magenta on the magenta, because they won't be as visible, so there really isn't a point to adding them there, and that way you can save on your coral resources. I want to achieve the maximum impact here, and I want to achieve lots of colourful contrast. Keep in mind that the fan coral can also be placed down to achieve a different shape. I've added in lots of coral now, and the next thing I'm going to add in is some kelp. Now, as with these columns here, I want to keep in mind that I'm not blocking too much of the build, so I'll have very little kelp actually in front of the build. I'll be placing these all around, and I think they give a really nice backdrop. They make the shell really pop, so having lots behind the actual shell is a great idea. I like to have them in little clumps like this, and then I'll just let them grow naturally. Have a little clump here. Add some over here, and once I've got all this in, I'm also going to go in and add a bunch of seagrass to the floor. I think I'm happy with that distribution of kelp. Let's just add a tiny clump here, and let's go in with some seagrass. Adding some green to the floor will really help separate this build from the sandy billows. You could also opt to place this build on top of gravel, or create a gravel kind of a natural platform below the shape of the build. That will just provide a little bit more definition, but I think adding this green is a plenty good enough way to make it stand out from the seafloor. Almost there with all of my seagrass, and then we'll watch this grow and see how the final build looks. So here we have the fully decorated clamshell house. You can see that adding the coral is a really important step as it brings this build to life. Now you can keep going and add a full coral reef around this build, or let it stand alone at the bottom of the sea. You could even go ahead and build some other giant shells nearby. You can also see I've brought some turtles, some dolphins, and lots of fish around to bring this build to life. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I'd really appreciate it, and check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me further. I'll see you in another video.